Welcome to 21st Sports Recap and Reaction for the New York Jets at the Houston Texans, played in Week 11, November 22nd, 2015. And we're going to go over the scores and the stats and give our breakdown and analysis for this game. So it was scoreless throughout the first quarter. Then just seconds into the second, Nick Novak hit a 20-yard field goal to put the Texans up 3-0. Then a little bit later in the second quarter, after Yates had fumbled the ball off a sack by Williams, the Jets would end up with a 40-yard field goal by Randy Bullock that tied this game up at 3 apiece with a little under 8.5 left before halftime. The Texans, though, with 3 minutes left before halftime, would get back on the scoreboard as they would get into the end zone for the first time in this game as TJ Yates hit DeAndre Hopkins for a 61-yard touchdown. And with the extra point by Novak, it was 10-3. So that was the score at halftime. Then in the third quarter, after both teams had possessed the ball, Ryan Fitzpatrick would hit Brandon Marshall for a 21-yard touchdown with 11 and a half minutes still left in the third, and this game was tied up at 10 apiece after the extra point by Bullock. Of course, Bullock is the former Texans kicker. So you have a couple of returns here as Fitzpatrick used to be their quarterback and Bullock used to be their kicker. Anyway, it was tied 10-10. But then with a little less than 8 minutes left in the third, Cecil Shorts III hits Alfred Blue for a 21-yard pass. It was Shorts' only pass attempt of the game on this trick play. And Nick Novak hit the extra point, and it was 17-10 Houston over New York. Then with about 3.5 minutes still left in the third, Yates hits DeAndre Hopkins as they connect for their second touchdown of the game. This one a 20-yard touchdown. Novak hit the extra point, and it was now 24-10. Texans up by 14. So that was the score after 3. Then in the fourth quarter, with about 4.5 minutes left, Ryan Fitzpatrick would score on a 6-yard touchdown run. Bullock added the extra point, and it was now a one-score game with the score Houston 24, New York 17. So now the game was within reach, and New York would actually get the ball back after forcing a 3-and-out by the Texans. And so they started off with the ball on their own 41, but then they decided to go for it as they couldn't really get anything going. They were faced with a 4th and 5 from their own 46, and Ryan Fitzpatrick was intercepted by Pleasant. And so now Houston would get the ball back with a little under 3 minutes left to play, but they would go 3-and-out yet again on their second consecutive possession, and now the Jets would get another shot with just over 2 minutes left to play. They had it on their own 20, and they would bring the game to the 2-minute warning with a first down at the 34 as Fitzpatrick hit Powell out of the backfield for a 14-yard pass. Then a false start made it 1st and 15 from the New York 29. Fitzpatrick drops back, and he's intercepted by Hall. And so now that would pretty much do it, as all that was left to do was for Yates to take 3 knees in the victory formation as the Houston Texans hold on to win this one 24-17 to remain in a tie in first place atop the AFC South. So Ryan Fitzpatrick, although he had that 6-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter that made it a one-score game, he then proceeds to throw 2 interceptions in the final 3 minutes. And that's pretty much what I've grown to expect from Ryan Fitzpatrick. It's why he's not in Houston anymore. It's what I've been saying all season, that don't get too excited about these Jets, because with Ryan Fitzpatrick under center, he will find ways to lose the game, as he has done throughout his career. When it comes clutch time, he will turn over the ball. He is the anti-clutch. So both teams are now 5-5 on the season. Of course, 5-5 has Houston in a tie with Indianapolis for first place there in the South. The Texans are now 3-2 at home, And the Jets at 5-5 are in third place at the moment, a half game behind Buffalo in the East. Of course, they'll be playing New England on Monday Night Football. And the Jets are 2-3 on the road this season. Well, let's look at the stats in this game. Yates, 16 of 34, 229 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Of course, that touchdown by Cecil Shorts, the third 21-yard touchdown, which gave them 3 passing touchdowns on the game. And for the Jets, Ryan Fitzpatrick, 19 of 39, 216 passing yards, 1 touchdown throwing, 1 touchdown running, and he had 2 interceptions, which really cost them the game. Then we look at the rushing. Alfred Blue, 21 carries for 58 yards, was the leading rusher in the game. And the leading rusher for the Jets, Chris Ivory, just 8 attempts for 36 yards, as the Jets were not at all committed to the run. And that's kind of the thing that we see a trend with teams. They just are not at all balanced on offense, and that usually leads to losses, especially when your quarterback is Fitzpatrick. I can understand if you've got one of the elite quarterbacks, but when your quarterback is trash, when he is really no better than a backup and should not be starting for the Jets, I mean, that's really just giving up on the season, having Fitzpatrick under center. And then when you ask him to throw the ball 39 times and you only give Chris Ivory 8 rushes, well, no surprise that you lost the game. We also look at DeAndre Hopkins for the Texans, who's leading receiver in this game. He had 5 receptions for 118 yards, 2 touchdowns. Of course, that 61-yard touchdown. And Cecil Shorts, the 30, had 2 receptions for 51 yards. Alfred Blue also had 3 receptions for 34 yards. And that receiving touchdown he caught from Cecil Shorts, the 3rd, which that gave Alfred Blue 92 total yards on the game. And for the Jets, Eric Decker was their leading receiver with 4 receptions for 81 yards. And Brandon Marshall had 5 receptions for 47 yards and a touchdown. We look at the kickers. Nick Novak was perfect, 1 for 1 on the field goals, 3 for 3 on the extra points. Bullock, 1 for 1 on the field goals, 2 for 2 on the extra points in his return to Houston. And for the defense, J.J. Watt coming up big, 2 sacks in this game. Pleasant and Hall both having interceptions. Clowney and Simon combined for a sack, as they each had a half sack in this game. And on the other end, Williams had a sack for the Jets. Of course, that forced the fumble. As he forced the fumble when he sacked Yates there, that would end up leading to a field goal, as they ended up with 3 points off of that turnover. Then we look at the team stats. 19 first downs for the Texans, 16 for the Jets. On third down, the Texans 7 of 18, 38% converted. New York 3 of 14, just 21% converted. They went for it twice on fourth down. They converted once for 50%. Then we look at total net yards. 364 for Houston, 267 for New York. Net rushing yards, 123 for the Texans, 70 for the Jets. And then we look at their net passing yards, 241 for Houston, 197 for New York. Yates was sacked once for a loss of 9 yards. Fitzpatrick sacked 3 times, losing 19 yards. Just again, to look back at the rushing for a moment, as I was saying how the Jets were not committed to the run, both teams averaged 3.3 yards on the ground per carry or per rushing play. And so with that, it shows that it's not like as if Houston was getting more production out of the ground game, other than that they were more committed to their ground game. So but let's look at the penalties in this game, and that cost the Jets as well. 7 penalties for 54 yards. The Texans, 3 penalties, 54 penalty yards as well. And when we look at the fumbles, both teams fumbled the ball. The Jets did not lose their fumble, and the Texans, they fumbled twice. They only lost the one. That was when Yates got sacked, and that ended up leading to a field goal by Bullock on the other side. And then we look at the red zone, and in the red zone, Houston actually struggled. They would have won this game by more points, but they were 0 for 2 in the red zone, and the Jets were 1 for 1. We look at the time of possession, 33 minutes, 25 seconds for Houston, 26 minutes, 35 seconds for New York. So really, this was the game that I was the most sure of really going into it. Is, for the simple fact is there was no way, at least in my mind, that Ryan Fitzpatrick was going to go into Houston and beat the Texans. For the Texans defense to actually be able to get a chance to square up against Fitzpatrick, and J.J. Watt had to be itching to get his hands on the guy who had cost him so many games last year, because you saw when he was the quarterback of the Texans, they'd be in a position to win. J.J. Watt and the defense would have played a phenomenal game, and then Fitzpatrick would just turn the ball over and flush it all down the toilet. So, they had to be really excited to be able to turn that around on him, and they did that especially in the last 3 minutes when they came up with those 2 big interceptions where, as I said earlier, Ryan Fitzpatrick is the anti-clutch. He's the opposite of clutch. When the going gets tough, he throws interceptions or fumbles the ball. In this case, it was the interceptions. Other times, he'll fumble it. Whatever it may be, he'll find a way to lose games for you. And so the Texans winning this one 24-17, evening up their record at 5-5, staying in a tie with the Colts, who won in a pretty miraculous fashion. We'll go over that in that recap. But let me know what you think about this game in the comments section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions, whether you agree or disagree. Thank you very much for listening. It's greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and had a great weekend and enjoyed all the sports.